Okay, so you aren't in this, just so you know, it's just the table.
Yep.
Okay.
Good to go. Hello there, it's Chris here in the studio once again. Today's live, we're going to be answering customers' questions regarding appliance repair. And being an appliance technician, I hope to be able to answer any questions you may have on any of your home appliances. As well, what we've got right in front of us is the insides of a microwave. Now, the microwave is one of the most common household appliances you'll find everywhere in different sizes, countertops, or such as this one, which is an over-the-counter model. But I get asked a lot as to just what's inside a microwave. What is it that actually does the cooking and how does it do it? You turn it on and you program it and you hit start and you hear that funny droning sound. So what is it that's making that noise? So that's what we want to kind of show today, what's inside it, and as well answer any questions you might have. Now Sarah's here with me again this week so that she'll be monitoring any of the questions coming in and passing them along, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. So inside your microwave, you've got the square steel box where you put your plate in, a food or your plastic dish in order to heat it. But everything that takes place in order to produce that heat is usually located right on this side of your microwave, which is on the same side of where the control board where you're inputting your selections. So in behind that is where you're going to find all the magic. And usually it's up in the upper part of the microwave where you'll find all these components. So the big one that you can see right here is a high voltage transformer. Off to the side here we have a capacitor and a diode. Now this little guy over here, that's your magnetron. That's actually the part that produces the microwave radiation. Now for this little guy to work, it needs to have voltage applied to it. And the challenge is it takes about 4,000 volts in order to have this guy produce microwave energy. So we have it plugged in. The microwave plugs into your wall. 120 volts are going in. So how do you get that 4,000 volts from 120? Well, there's some really clever people that came up with some theory and applied it, in which they're taking a transformer, such as this one, and this guy is going to take that 120 volts and it's going to boost it up to about 2,000 volts. Now that's enough to start to create a little bit of energy for the magnetron, but it really needs to be almost double that. So between the capacitor and the diode, it creates a situation they call a voltage doubler circuit, and that's going to produce 4,000 volts to this magnetron. So once that 4,000 volts hit it, it fires the microwave energy, which comes out of it into off an antenna, like a radio type antenna, and it produces the radiation that goes through a channel and enters the cavity where your food is. So that microwave energy is now bouncing around inside that cavity, almost like a snowstorm. It's just bouncing off one side wall, the top, the bottom, all around in order to hit from all different angles to penetrate your food. So it's a pretty important device. And it's actually one of the most common parts that will fail in a microwave over time, just from lots of use. Now I'm just going to pull it out of there so you can see what it really looks like. I've already taken some screws out. I'm going to take a couple of wires off as well. One more screw to take out so it doesn't fall into place. So there's what your magnetron actually looks like. It's nothing really big, nothing heavy, but the most important component in order to make your microwave work. But over time, these will fail. They'll overheat. The magnets will sometimes lose some of their magnetism, which affects the direction of the energy, and it'll actually tend to burn out the antenna. In any of those situations, you have to replace it. And really, it's not a horrible job to do if you want to do it yourself. You just need to, take the cover off and work your way down to get the screws to get it out of there. But that's your magnetron. That's the thing that does all the work. And that's the device that you hear, what we term, you know, when you hear the magnetron fire up. That's that noise you first hear when you hit start. You hear the fans come on, you hear a click, and you get that buzzing sound. So this is the guy that's actually creating that. As well, you've got your high voltage transformer. These seldom fail. I think I probably maybe changed 2 in my career. Just one of those things that over time, the one circuit either on the low 120 volt side or the high voltage side opens up and you have to replace it. There are some that sometimes short out and they burn up, and you know, you wind up with that horrible burning smell. But again, it's another component that can easily be changed. The only downside to these over-the-counter microwaves is you have to get them down to service them. So it's a little bit of a pain that way to drop them down off the counter, and ideally, you know, having 2 people to do it makes it a lot easier and a lot less chance of damaging anything in the kitchen. So beside the transformer, we have your capacitor. Now capacitors will fail. They'll be one of the higher replacement parts. And they just have a strap that holds them. Now your capacitor is a storage device. It stores electric energy. It stores it and releases it. So whenever you're having to do anything with the capacitor, you want to make sure you discharge it before you physically start touching where wires connect. Because if it's holding a charge, you could potentially get a shock. So those are just easily discharged simply by taking a pair of pliers and going across the 2 sets of terminals and just let them touch, and that would discharge it. If the capacitor is charged, you might see a little spark, but because these hold several, you know, these will hold about, you know, almost anywhere from 500 to 1,000 volts, or however they're designed. So you want to make sure you discharge it first, and it's pretty easy to do. But that's your capacitor. Some microwaves have a built-in circuit that'll bleed that electricity off if the microwave's just been sitting there. But anytime, if you're not sure, you want to discharge that capacitor if you're going to try and do any repairs yourself. As well, there's a diode. So this little guy doesn't look like much, looks like a fat wire coated in rubber, but this is a diode. And what a diode does is it only allows electricity and current to flow in one direction. So this is what's used in order to be part of the circuit to boost that voltage from the 2,000 up to the 4,000. Very important. These will sometimes fail as well, and they're very easy to diagnose with a multimeter. Basically, you're just going to do a continuity check, and if the continuity shows you have a circuit one way but not the other, the diode's good. If you don't have continuity in either direction, it's bad. If it's split or cracked open, then of course you can tell physically that it needs to be replaced. But that's a diode.
We've got a few questions rolling in.
Good
Do you
stuff.
want to break away from microwaves for a minute?
Yes, love to.
Perfect. All right, so the first one came through TikTok. My dryer is making a thumping noise and smells burnt. Any ideas?
Okay, good question. So we have a question from TikTok asking about a dryer that has a burning smell.
Thumping noise and burning smell.
Thumping noise and burning smell. Okay, thumping noise is fairly common in dryer. Your dryer drum, as it spins, is usually running on a set of drum rollers. Then they're just wheels, basically. Over time, with normal wear and tear, those wheels will wear out. They'll tend to flatten, or the bearing inside wears out and put your drum off center. So now you're starting to get a bit of a thumping sound as that drum rotates. Now, burning smell, that's either you've got a condition where maybe the drum roller or that wheel I was talking about binds up and actually stops turning so that the drum is being forced to rotate on that rubber wheel, and they'll get hot and you can get a burning smell from that. As well in dryers, burning smells can usually come from excess amount of lint inside the machine that's actually falling down on top of the element or being pulled across the element, and you'll get a burning smell from that as well. And probably would be a really good idea sometime soon to get that machine looked at, take it apart and check those support wheels as well as look for any lint buildup.
Cool. We've got one that came through YouTube, and it's a question about a Whirlpool washer that doesn't let cold water in.
Okay, so we have a Whirlpool washer. Question is, there's no water coming in, and what can we do in that?
Water.
Cold water, okay. And that was from Facebook?
YouTube question.
YouTube. So it was a YouTube question. So thanks all you YouTube folks for dropping in today. So any washer typically has an inlet valve. They can be separate or together, one for cold, one for hot. And basically they're just an electric magnet that pulls open a plunger to allow the water through. So if you're not getting any cold water, first thing I would do if I came to your home would be one, and I know it sounds silly, but it happens, I check to make sure that the valve's turned on. Now I get yelled at a lot when I ask that question, but you'd be amazed at how many times that it's actually closed when you think it's open. So if you're sure you got water coming to the machine, you'll want to shut off that valve, take your hose off, and look at the screen where that hose attaches. Those wells sometimes get so much of a buildup inside from silt or dirt or whatever, and it'll restrict the flow. If that screen is clear and you're still not getting any cold water, you'll want to pay attention to when the machine goes to fill up if you're hearing any kind of a humming sound from the valve. If the valve is humming, that tells you that the electric coil that opens the valve is being energized. So you know your power supply through your machine is doing exactly what it should be, and the valve's just not opening. So you have an issue where it could be electrical, where the coil's not being energized, or you have a mechanical issue where the plunger's not actually opening to let the water through. In either case, if you do have water going to it and the valve is humming and you have no water, you're going to have to replace that valve. And that's a pretty easy job. You'd have no problem doing that.
All right, we have another question from YouTube.
Okay.
This person has had to clean the chopper blade in their dishwasher twice in the past month. How sharp is the blade supposed to be? It feels pretty dull.
Okay. So there's a YouTube viewer has a question regarding their dishwasher in which they had to clean out the sump in their dishwasher down around where their macerator blade is. And the questioning is to how sharp should that be? Macerator blades, depending on the manufacturer, can be very sharp to the point you have to be very careful handling them because they're like knife blades. Other manufacturers, they can be a little bit more blunt. But the function of them is to take food product that's coming down, being pulled down through the pump, and basically chopping it up. I guess I'd have to look at the fact that you're seeing a fair bit of material coming down through there that needs to be chewed up. So depending on your machine and what kind of filter system it has, you'd want to be taking a look to see if there's something wrong with the filter in the sump or in the basket where the water drains down through to go into the sump. Because there really shouldn't be, if it's any size at all, it should be being caught there before it even gets to your macerator blade. If you have, if your filters and everything's good and you still have things that are getting down to the, down to that blade and it's getting caught up there and that can cause some interference. Before they were using noise filters, there was issues where if you had a cordless phone and stuff near your microwave, it could scramble the control board. So part of the reason they put these noise suppressors in. Not a lot goes wrong with them. The main thing is this fuse will go, which you can replace separately. There are a few manufacturers that this is all in one piece. You can't get the fuse off the board, it's soldered in. So if something fails, you have to replace this entire board. But it's just held by a couple of screws. It's not a big deal to get it out of the microwave and change it up. So there are lots of safety devices within your microwave. There's thermostats. There is actually one thermostat that's right here in your magnetron. This little guy is basically just measuring the heat around the magnetron. So it senses the magnetron's getting too hot, it's going to open up the circuit and shut it down. So the microwave will still program, but when you go to call for it to heat, nothing will happen other than the fan coming on. It will not allow the magnetron to fire up.
So we have another question from YouTube. This person is wondering if you can explain how a microwave cooks your food. How does it work?
Okay, so one of our YouTube viewers is asking just how exactly does a microwave actually cook your food, which is a great question, and we get that a lot. So what's basically happening is this guy is producing, the term is radiation, but it's really sending out microwaves. So like a radio wave, so that you can listen to, this is a little shorter frequency and a little faster, so that these waves of energy are being emitted from the antenna through into the cavity where they start to bounce in all different directions in order to cook your food evenly. So it's microwave energy that's being emitted, and that's what's actually cooking your food, is that microwave energy. So it's a beam that's coming out, and then it's spreading as it comes out, and then it starts bouncing within that metal cavity. And that's why you'll find every microwave, the inside is a metal box with paint on it. So it allows that energy to bounce off it in order to hit all your food evenly. As well as you've got a turntable that's turning your food at the same time, so you get good coverage of all that microwave energy. So the other cool thing about microwave energy is if you ever notice the door on your microwave, you can see through it. You can see your food turning and being cooked. But, you know, it's kind of like, well, do I dare put my face anywhere near that? Because if all this energy is bouncing around, what's happening? Well, you'll notice in your door, you can't really see clearly because there's this film there that's got a whole bunch of holes in it. So that's called a choke screen, and that is specifically designed to be used with a microwave. In other words, those holes are small enough so as microwave energy bounces, it can't pass through that choke screen. That radiation is reflected back into the microwave. But that's how come you can see what's inside and not have any fear of any harm for you. So if you ever decide for some reason to take your door apart, you want to make sure you don't disturb that choke screen. Or if you've got it really far apart, make sure you have that choke screen put back in. So I hope that answers your question.
I have one.
Oh, Sarah's got a question. Uh-oh.
Why does my food have cold spots in it then?
Ah, from using your microwave.
Yeah.
So Sarah's asking why her food has either like a hot spot or cold spots. So that's really a good question. Every microwave, just like every regular oven, has areas which are either hotter or colder. And in a microwave, it's an issue where some of the microwave energy is not bouncing into certain areas. So that can show up if everything was fine and now you're starting to see cold spots. It could be an issue with the turntable. If that turntable's not turning, or if the motor and the little gearbox is stripped and the platform is only turning occasionally, then you're not getting your food exposed to all the microwave energy that's bouncing around in there. So I would be looking at the turntable as one thing that may be going on, or just in its own design, there just may be certain areas where that's not giving you a full amount of the radiation that you're getting in other spots. We used to, ages ago, used to be able to test for stuff like that. We used to take a whole bunch of little LEDs, throw them inside the cavity in different parts, and run the microwave with a cup of water in it, and we could actually see which LEDs were lighting up, so we would know if there were some that were barely being lit or seldom being lit, that we had a spot where there wasn't as much energy hitting. So there you go, Sarah. That's what you need to know. Check that turntable.
Definitely the turntable.
There you go. There you go. So turntable is actually that's a good point to bring up, Sarah, because turntables are more common in microwaves than ever now. And really, there's just a small timer motor that has a little gear coming off it that's mounted to the underneath, the bottom side of the oven cavity. And so on top of that, inside is a little plastic triangle that your glass tray sits on. So that gearbox is held by 2 screws, has 2 wires going to it. It's very easy to get at from underneath. You don't typically have to take your microwave down, just need to remove that bottom cover where you see the light and the grills for your grease filter and that kind of stuff where the air moves through. So that's easily accessible. Like I say, it's 2 screws. You can very easy change that turntable motor. And it is something that's running every time the microwave runs. So normal wear and tear, eventually you're going to need to replace that. But again, it's really easy to do.
We had another turntable related question come through on YouTube.
Okay.
This person's microwave oven turns on its own.
Oh, good one. So this is a YouTube question. The customer has a microwave that the turntable is actually turning all by itself.
Yeah, it turns on its own.
Oh, so that's interesting. So that shouldn't be happening. Some machines actually have an on-off switch, so you can turn the turntable off if you want to. But anytime that microwave is actually running, producing energy, that turntable should be turning. So if yours is turning all the time, there's a possibility that one of the door switches is sticking, but more than likely there's an issue with the control board, because on microwaves, pretty well they bring power into the control board and it sends out electricity to all the different components. Everything feeds into and out of those control boards. So there's a good chance that there may be something a little wonky with that control board. Now sometimes they can be self-corrected simply by powering down your microwave, pull the plug or turn off your breaker, let it sit for a bit and then reboot it up, and you may find that the board corrects it if it's just a software thing. But if it's still continually doing it, you're either looking at door switch issue or, unfortunately, possibly control board.
So the good old turn it off and back on again.
Yeah, yeah, you're right, Sarah. Rebooting pretty well any appliance that's full of electronics these days. If you're getting some nuisance thing that never happened before, either it's not taking an input or not taking a cycle or a selection, yeah, definitely power it down, let it sit for a bit and power it back up. There is, IC processors in there. They do have a memory. And they can get their programming scrambled. So a reboot can solve a lot of issues, and whether that's your washer, dishwasher, or a microwave. So there's not a whole lot really more that we talked about. The thermostat that's on the magnetron that protects it. There's actually a couple of other thermostats throughout the machine. One that mounts right to the cavity wall, and it's there to do the same thing. So if the inside of the microwave starts to get too warm, that thermostat's going to sense it and it's going to shut it down. There's also another one typically you find somewhere within the airways where your fans are running, and if it senses that the air temperature is getting too hot from what it's set for, it'll shut the microwave down as well. So there's a lot of safety devices built into your microwave. And the amount of issues that really happen as far as problems or, sparks or anything like that, or you don't often hear microwaves catching on fire. It's pretty rare that something happens. And if there is a fire in the microwave, most times it's just because it wasn't cleaned well. You wind up with, cooking something that has a lot of fats, a lot of splatters, and you'll wind up with the potential of a fire if something was to spark. So as long as you keep them clean inside, you're pretty well reducing any problems as far as any kind of fire or smoke go.
We had a related question come through our Facebook audience. My microwave is rusty inside. Do I need to get a new one?
So our Facebook customer is asking about the oven cavity inside and the fact that hers or his is starting to rust a little bit. So that can be an issue. Once that finish starts coming off nice and smooth, you can wind up maybe getting some hot spots, or you may see some arcing. Sometimes when it's running, you'll see a little bit of a spark. That's because that coating is missing and the surface is getting rough. Now I know lots of people that have sanded them down smooth and used a paint to try and cover that up, and you can do that. But once those liners start to rust, it will continue to do so. Honestly, I don't think there's any manufacturer that makes that cavity available. The price of the part and the amount of work involved in changing it out, because the first piece that they start with when they build a microwave is that oven cavity. So you're probably looking at a better investment to either replace or look for another microwave in one way or another. So other than that, within your microwave, you've got a couple other things that go on. You've got some wires down to the underside that are feeding your lights. Light bulbs are easily changeable by the customer. Again, there's a panel that just drops down from the bottom that allows you to reach up and take out those bulbs. A lot of your newer microwaves now have LED lighting in them, which is really cool. It reduces energy use and they're nice and bright. Those are not a bulb. They're actually a piece attached to a little circuit board. But again, they're easily changed. And LED lighting, as well as being low in energy use, tend to last a long, long time. And they're not as susceptible to vibration that filament bulbs were. So it's a positive move when you start seeing that LED stuff. As well as your microwave also has an exhaust fan built into it. And microwaves today all come that you can mount this fan in 3 ways. You can have it vent that air to the outside behind the microwave into your house venting system. It can come out straight up from the top of the microwave into your house venting system, or it can be set up so it vents that air right into the room if you don't have any way to vent it outside. So if it's on an inside wall and you can't get up to run venting outside, then you can just vent them right into the room, which works fine. They still will pull a fair bit of the steam and moisture away from your stove, but they do re-enter it right back into the room. So you do wind up adding some moisture and some odor. So if you do have it vented to inside the room, you may want to make the investment into charcoal filters so that any air that they're picking up gets filtered. The charcoal will pick up the odor and stops it from being reintroduced into the room. If you're venting outside, then you really only need grease filters. And they're there just simply to do what they're called, pick up any amount of grease that's in the vapor from cooking. And this is talking about cooking on your stove that's underneath it. So if you're cooking and you get a lot of steam or smoke coming off your food that you're cooking, you want to make sure you're running the exhaust fans on your microwave because they are a range hood as well as being a microwave.
How often do you need to change those filters?
Sarah just asked, how often do you need to change those filters? So if it's charcoal filters because you're venting inside the house, it really comes down to the amount of usage and what you're cooking on your stove as to how much grease vapors you have coming off them. So if you're finding that whenever you're cooking, you're using your microwave as a range hood, that you're still getting that strong odor being moved through the home, then you want to look at changing those filters. Grease filters are actually kind of nice because you can take those down and you can wash them in the sink. Just not the dishwasher, but you can hand wash them, just put them in a good amount of soapy water and rinse that grease off them, and they're reusable. So you don't have to actually replace them each time. It really depends on what you're cooking and how often you're cooking off your range top. Oh, something I want to mention is we have our 25th anniversary coming up, so we want to promote that. So it's December 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can see us on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, and we're going to be doing a little celebrating for our 25th anniversary. So it's going to be another live, and we're going to be doing a promo giveaway for a Breville Barista Express. Awesome machine, state of the art. It's something that everybody should have in their home. So we're going to be giving one of those away. So if you want to tune in on the 19th, we'd be glad to see you. Okay, so I'm getting that sign that time's starting to run out for our live. So if you have any questions, send them forward and we'll certainly try to answer them. If you come up with a question, you can certainly reach out through any of our sites and contact us, and we'll try and answer the question and get it back to you as soon as we can. Doesn't have to be just about microwaves, any of your home appliances. Glad to help. So just to wrap up on microwaves, you can see there's nothing really that wild and scary inside. A few components that are used in order to make the machine work, a lot of safety devices so you don't have to worry about running a microwave in your home, and they're still one of the most commonly used appliances in your home, so enjoy.
See you next time.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, for your help today. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. We'll see you next time. Hopefully see you on the 19th. Bye now.